Brother, I've agreed to come home for the arranged marriage. Trista's faint voice was especially clear in the silent night. On the other end of the phone, Alfred finally felt relieved upon hearing this, finally decided to break up with that little boyfriend of yours. After all these years together, he never agreed to come back with you to meet me and our parents. I always knew you two wouldn't last. Hearing her brother's confident tone, Trista lowered her eyes and softly agreed. I was wrong before. I'll handle things on my end as soon as possible. Please take care of the wedding arrangements. Just give me half a month. You don't need to worry about the wedding. We'll take care of the preparations. You just need to come back on time. The match we've chosen for this marriage alliance was carefully selected by me and our parents. Good family background, personality, and appearance. You're sure to be pleased. By the way, when you come back for the wedding, remember to invite someone for me, my best friend from before, Hayden. When you went to study at university in City G, didn't you stay at his place for a while? He took good care of you back then. Make sure to invite him to the wedding. Trista didn't know how to respond to that. After a long silence, she finally responded in a low voice. He can't go. Hello, everyone. Welcome to my channel. Subscribe us to read wonderful stories every day. Now the story begins. Before the words had even finished, the door was pushed open. Trista quickly hung up the phone and looked up at Hayden, who had just returned. He raised an eyebrow, a bold and arrogant smile spreading across his roguishly defiant face. I can't go where? My wedding. Trista told him the answer in her heart. But her expression remained unruffled, her tone indifferent. It's nothing. Hayden didn't take it to heart, casually unbuttoning his black shirt. Were you just on the phone with your brother? Trista gave a faint hum and got up to return to the bedroom, but he pulled her hand and drew her into his embrace. Scorching breath brushed against her ear, an ambiguous tension surging between the two of them. Then did you tell him what our relationship is? Trista smiled, but the smile didn't reach her eyes. Didn't you not want him to know? It's not that I don't want to, but I can't, with your brother's temper. If he found out his best friend and his most precious sister are together, he'd probably fly to City G overnight and beat me so badly I couldn't get out of bed. Hearing his joking tone, Trista's eyelashes fluttered slightly, her voice still calm. So, in your heart, am I your girlfriend? Hearing her suddenly ask such a question, Hayden raised an eyebrow. Not a girlfriend. I've lived with you for 6 years. Not a girlfriend. I hugged you as soon as I came back. Not a girlfriend. I do this kind of thing to you. As he spoke, his warm lips brushed against her neck. Trista's body instantly tensed, and she quickly turned her head to avoid the kiss. I'm not feeling well today. Hayden thought she was just being shy and couldn't help but chuckle. Little girlfriend, we've been together for so long. Why are you still so shy? After saying that, he ruffled her hair and turned to walk toward the bathroom, listening to the fading footsteps. Trista murmured the words once again. A girlfriend, shouldn't it be, a substitute? Trista first met Hayden 8 years ago. He and Alfred were college roommates. Because of their close relationship, Alfred would often bring him home to play games together. In her youth, with a budding heart, she almost fell for this aloof, lazy, and breathtakingly handsome older brother at first sight. Later, after she graduated from high school, Hayden also graduated and returned to his hometown, City G. Missing him, she secretly applied to a university in his city, despite her family's objections. Because she was good-looking, she had been harassed by many troublemakers since high school. Alfred, worried about her being alone in a different city, entrusted her to his good friend Hayden and even let her stay in his apartment. At first, the two had little interaction. She was busy with school, Hayden was busy with racing and dating, changing girlfriends almost every 3 days. It wasn't until her second semester of freshman year that Hayden came back dead drunk, and she flusteredly took care of him. Late at night, she looked at the person who seemed to have fallen asleep on the sofa and, as if possessed, raised her hand to smooth out his furrowed brows. As her skin touched his, those tightly closed eyes suddenly opened, Hayden lifting his eyelids casually. His voice was lazy and magnetic. Like me, after her secret was exposed, Trista sprang to her feet. No. The man gave a lazy smile. If you don't like it, then why does your face turn so red every time you see me? Trista never expected that he was aware of every time she stole a glance at him. Just as she was at a loss for what to do, the man smiled, cupped the back of her head, and pressed a gentle kiss to her lips. She was lost in this tender, lingering kiss, unable to extricate herself. After a night of intimacy, Trista's once peaceful life was turned completely upside down. Hayden, who seemed like a wanderer at heart, appeared to have settled down, focusing wholeheartedly on their relationship. She repeatedly refused her parents' and brother's demands to return home for an arranged marriage, stubbornly choosing to stay in City G and remain by his side. Every time, her brother would ask her, "City G, who's there that made you stay wild for 6 years without coming back?" She often wanted to reveal her relationship with Hayden and tell everyone that she was with her brother's best friend, but Hayden always stopped her. She never knew why until a few days ago, when Hayden drank too much at a gathering. As she went to pick him up, one of his drunk friends pointed at her and sighed. How did such a beautiful girl also fall for this guy Hayden? I'm telling you, little sister, you mustn't fall for Hayden. That guy, he has no heart. You, along with his ex and the one before that, are all just substitutes for Rosalind. This was the first time Trista heard the name Rosalind, and from then on, she could never forget it. After making numerous inquiries, she finally learned the truth. Hayden and Rosalind were each other's first love. In the year he loved her the most, Rosalind broke up with him and resolutely went abroad. Unable to move on from the past, he indulged himself as a fleeting visitor among flowers, constantly dating one girlfriend after another, and each girlfriend, to a greater or lesser extent, carried the shadow of Rosalind. This also included her. After graduation, he refused to inherit the family business and insisted on becoming a race car driver, all because of Rosalind's youthful remark, "Guys who race cars are so cool, my future husband must be a race car driver." 6 years of youth and sincerity turned out to be nothing but an illusion. At that moment, Trista made the decision to return home for an arranged marriage. She no longer wanted Hayden, nor would she ever like him again. At 7 o'clock the next day, her biological clock woke Trista up on time. As soon as she opened her eyes, she saw Hayden adjusting his shirt in front of the mirror. His schedule had always been irregular, but waking up this early was, in Trista's memory, a first. Hearing her footsteps, he turned around, saw her, and asked, "How handsome does Big Brother look in this outfit today?" He was a natural clothes hanger. Even a simple black shirt looked great on him on ordinary days. Today, with the extra effort, he was undeniably handsome. A single lazy glance from him could charm a crowd of young girls. She didn't know why he had suddenly started paying so much attention to his appearance. In the past, it would have made her heart flutter wildly, but now she just nodded calmly and said, "Very handsome." Hayden didn't notice her unusual reaction. He curved his lips into a smile and said, "I have a gathering today. Be good and stay at home. I'll bring you some dessert when I come back." With that, he turned and left. After watching his figure disappear, Trista wanted to pour herself a glass of water, but then she noticed the phone he had left on the table. She accidentally pressed the power button when picking it up. The screen lit up, revealing a new message, from someone saved as Rosalind. "Hayden, it's been 8 years. I'm really looking forward to today's gathering. How about you?" Upon seeing the message, Trista paused in her steps. It turned out her first love was returning to the country today. No wonder she had woken up so early and dressed so carefully, with joy evident in the corners of her eyes and brows. The next second, the door was pushed open. Hayden, who had turned back halfway, suddenly returned to get his phone. Before leaving, he glanced at the screen, paused slightly, and couldn't help but take a look at Trista, who was having a meal. "Did you just look at my phone?" Trista slightly raised her eyes, her gaze calm. "No, why?" Only then did he smile, as if relieved, said "It's nothing," and turned to leave. This was the first time Trista suddenly found him a bit hard to understand. His heart was always with his first love. Every girlfriend he found was a substitute for Rosalind. Logically, he shouldn't care about her at all. So why did he care whether she discovered the truth? Could it be that he was afraid of losing her? Trista didn't want to flatter herself, and besides, she knew that losing him was already a done deal. After finishing breakfast, Trista sat down in front of the computer and opened the drawing software. She was a comic artist, and after returning home, she would be busy with wedding preparations, so she probably wouldn't be able to work for quite some time. Taking advantage of her free time now, she planned to finish all the remaining drafts. After working hard all morning, she packed up the results of her half-day effort and sent them to her editor, then had lunch. In the afternoon, taking advantage of the nice weather, she cleared out a lot of things, matching couples' mugs, keychains, scarves, jackets. These were all things she had bought over the years, piling up into a large box. Every time she saw these, she remembered the helpless look in Hayden's eyes when she insisted he use or wear them right after they arrived. It's all stuff little girls like. Do you really want your brother to take it out and get laughed at by his friends? Remembering these words, Trista dragged the suitcase downstairs and threw it, box and all, into the trash. Now it's done. No one will laugh anymore. Having dealt with it decisively, Trista was about to go back when she turned around and bumped right into a cool, refreshing embrace. At some point, Hayden had returned, one arm wrapped around her shoulder while the other gently brushed aside the sweat-dampened bangs from her forehead. "Did you lose something? Why are you so drenched in sweat?" Just some useless trash. Trista offered the excuse without batting an eye, and Hayden didn't question it, simply leading her upstairs. The moment the elevator doors opened, the sanitation truck happened to arrive, rumbling loudly. Watching that box of things being carried away by the truck, Trista finally withdrew her gaze. Trash? How could there be so much trash? In fact, a single glance would have revealed the anomaly. Yet he didn't ask a thing. It's just because they don't care. Trista, a trace of self-mockery flickered in her eyes, and as her gaze swept over the lingering smile on his face, she froze for a moment. Hayden had a pair of captivating peach blossom eyes that, when he smiled, made it impossible to look away. Perhaps aware of this, he wore a smile on his face most of the time. Others thought he had a good temper, but only Trista knew that his smile was merely superficial and never reached his eyes. But today, all day long, when he smiled, there was genuine joy in his eyes. Seeing Rosalind, it seems he was truly happy. As soon as he entered the door, Hayden noticed that the house felt much emptier. He looked around with a surprised expression on his face. Did a thief break in? Why does it feel like a lot of things are missing? Where's the water cup? And the throw pillow is gone too. Trista was about to answer when Hayden's phone dinged several times. He glanced down at the messages and quickly brushed the matter aside, heading straight to the study on his own. Before closing the door, he left a reminder. Trista, I have something to take care of. You go to sleep first. No need to wait for me. Trista didn't ask anything and went back to the bedroom alone. The clock on the wall passed 12, and her phone under the pillow started vibrating frantically. Trista, happy birthday to you. Trista, happy 23rd birthday. Baby, remember to have some cake. Scrolling through, it's all birthday wishes. Dad, Mom, brother, friends, classmates, even those thousands of miles away, all sent their blessings. Only the boyfriend right by her side seemed to have forgotten all about it, because he had more important things to do. Trista turned off the movie playing halfway on her laptop and clicked on the WeChat window that kept popping up in the bottom right corner. It was Hayden chatting with Rosalind. He didn't know that his WeChat was logged in on the laptop. She could see every single message. She watched as the two of them talked from the past to the present, and then into the future. In the dense, lengthy conversation, Hayden never once mentioned her. Yes, after all, she was just a substitute for comfort, nothing worth mentioning. Watching the dense, still refreshing conversation, she pressed the power button. A night without dreams. The next day, Trista was woken up by the doorbell. Rubbing her eyes as she walked to the living room, she saw Hayden, who had woken up at some point, turning around holding a bouquet of flowers and carrying a birthday cake. Trista, did you order a cake? Why the sudden craving for cake? After a few seconds of silence in the room, Trista finally spoke slowly. It must have been my friend who sent someone to deliver it for my birthday. Upon hearing this, Hayden froze in place. He instinctively glanced at the calendar on the wall and realized it was already July 12th. He had actually forgotten her birthday. Hayden flashed a hint of guilt in his eyes, quickly put down what he was holding, and guided Trista back to the bedroom. It's your birthday today, let's go out on a date. What would you like to eat? No need, let's just celebrate at home. Trista rejected the suggestion. Hayden insisted on going out to celebrate, even taking a dress from the wardrobe and handing it over. Unable to persuade him otherwise, she had no choice but to freshen up and follow him out. The two went to their favorite restaurant for dim sum, watched the latest movie together, and then strolled around the mall for a while. Along the way, Trista went to the restroom and returned to find him on the phone, asking his family to help order an expensive necklace. This necklace happened to be the very one she had spotted in a magazine half a month ago. Seeing how eager he was, Trista felt a mix of complicated emotions in her heart. She couldn't quite understand what was going through his mind. He remembered the necklace she had glanced at a few times, yet completely forgot the most important birthday, which is more important. Can he really not tell? Upon closer thought, it should actually be distinguishable. Before Rosalind returned, he regarded her as a substitute and a source of solace, so he cared about everything related to her. After Rosalind returned, he shifted all his attention to Rosalind, so everything related to her was forgotten by him. All morning, Trista couldn't quite muster any energy and felt indifferent to everything she saw. Hayden noticed her absent-mindedness and ruffled her hair. Why does the birthday girl seem a bit down? Are you not happy with my plans for today? Thinking back now, he always loved to ruffle her hair. Subconsciously, he probably always saw her as a little sister rather than a lover. Trista shook her head and was about to say she was tired and wanted to go home. Hayden instead hailed a taxi and gave the driver the address of a mountain villa. Facing her surprised gaze, he raised an eyebrow. Didn't you always say you wanted to meet my friends? Everyone's free today, so I'll take you to meet them. Will that make you happier? This unexpected plan made Trista pause in slight astonishment. In the past, Hayden was unwilling to meet her family and friends, so she had wanted to meet his, but every time, he would come up with all sorts of excuses to refuse. As time went on, she stopped bringing it up, now that she was about to leave City G. He was taking her to meet them out of a sense of guilt. Everything in the world is truly a series of coincidences. She quietly watched the scenery flashing by outside the window, but in the end, said nothing. The taxi stopped halfway up the mountain. Hayden led her into the mountain villa and pushed open the heavy door. Bang, 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 colorful fireworks and ribbons fluttered down from the sky. A noisy crowd squeezed through the door, laughing and shouting, "Happy birthday!" Seeing the commotion, Hayden quickly pulled Trista into his arms, brushing the confetti off her hair while shooing away a few buddies who were crowding in. "Be careful, don't scare my little girl, she's a bit timid." His words were cut off abruptly. He looked at that familiar face in the crowd, and his expression suddenly changed. Rosalind, however, looked completely at ease and walked up to him with a smile. "Hayden, it's been so many years since I've been abroad. And I haven't attended any group activities in a long time. I heard this morning that you were celebrating your girlfriend's birthday, so I thought I'd come join the fun. You don't mind, do you?" Hayden glanced around coldly, and everyone lost the courage to meet his gaze, avoiding it one after another, pretending it had nothing to do with them. As the atmosphere was about to turn awkward, Trista politely extended her hand and took the initiative to greet. "Welcome, nice to meet you, I'm Trista." Rosalind stared at her for a long moment before seeming to understand something, then shook her hand with a faint, ambiguous smile. "Hello, my name is Rosalind, Hayden's friend, Trista. Has anyone ever told you that we look somewhat alike?" As soon as these words were spoken, Hayden's arm around her tightened abruptly. Trista remained calm. "However, really, then we must be fated." Seeing the atmosphere turn cold, the people around immediately began to liven things up. A group of acquaintances gathered together drinking and playing games, making a lot of noise. Trista didn't know anyone and wasn't fond of such lively gatherings, so she sat on the sofa. Hayden stayed by her side, but his gaze kept drifting to the table on the left, following his line of sight. She immediately spotted Rosalind, who was making the most noise. At first, he held back, but when Rosalind picked up the wine glass in front of her, he could no longer stay seated. He abruptly stood up, snatched the glass away, his tone filled with displeasure. "You're allergic to alcohol, and you're still drinking. Are you crazy?" His voice was so agitated that the entire hall fell silent, and everyone turned their gaze toward them. Rosalind toyed with the dice in her hand, a playful smile curling at the corner of her lips. "After all these years, you still remember that?" Hayden hadn't spoken yet when his drunken buddies suddenly crowded around, shouting loudly. Hayden could never forget that. Back when you two were dating, he only had eyes for you, the hopeless romantic. Hearing this, Hayden instinctively glanced back at Trista, his face instantly darkening as he snapped sharply, "If you're drunk, go sober up, stop talking nonsense here." The group paled at his scolding, only then realizing Trista was there, and quickly tried to smooth things over. "Drink less, the game isn't over yet. Come on, next round." The frozen atmosphere at the scene finally returned to normal. Suppressing the surging emotions in his chest, Hayden returned to the sofa, picked up the juice on the table, and handed it to the person beside him. Trista said nothing and asked nothing, taking the cup and sipping a few mouthfuls. Her calm demeanor, however, made Hayden uneasy. He was about to explain a few words when teasing voices rose again from behind him. Rosalind lost. Let me draw, let me see, you've drawn truth. And the question here is, if it were possible, would you get back together with your ex-boyfriend?" In the silence, Rosalind looked at Hayden, a faint smile curling her lips. "Never." The atmosphere in the entire private room dropped to freezing point. No one dared to make another sound. Rosalind, however, seemed completely unfazed and insisted on starting a new game. While humoring her, the group kept stealing glances at Hayden, who was scowling so fiercely it seemed he might tear the whole place apart, not daring to even breathe loudly. And in the latest round, Rosalind lost again. Just as she was about to face punishment, Hayden could no longer hold back, grabbing her hand and rushing out the door. The people at the scene seemed to have anticipated this outcome, and no one inquired further, each returning to their own activities. But Trista could see through the floor-to-ceiling window the two figures arguing not far away, along with the intense, indistinct sounds of their dispute from outside. Watching this scene, Trista had a complex emotion flash in her eyes. In her impression, Hayden seemed indifferent to everything, always wearing a careless, lazy smile. After knowing him for 8 years, it was the first time she had seen him so out of control. Yet it was all because of Rosalind's words. Never. It turns out that when one is not loved, everyone is equally pitiful. After the argument, Hayden seemed too angry to stay and left without looking back. Seeing Rosalind come in alone, everyone realized the party was falling apart and began making excuses to leave. Meanwhile, Trista, the forgotten guest of honor, also stood up amid the chaos. Before leaving, she went to the restroom. Through the door, she heard footsteps approaching from outside. A moment later, the voice of the girl who had been the most boisterous at the drinking table earlier suddenly rang out. "Rosalind, you obviously still like Hayden. You even came back to the country for him this time. Why did you say those things earlier and make him leave? How are you going to get back together now?" After the sound of running water, Rosalind responded with a laugh. "If we don't have a fight, how can I make him remember what happened 8 years ago? I want him to recall that heart-wrenching pain of loving yet being unable to have me when we broke up. Only then will he keep thinking about me. No, it's been 8 years. How much more do you want him to remember? Look at all the girlfriends he's had, each one resembles you. The one he brought today, even though they've been together for a while, seems like just a fling. It's her birthday today, but Hayden's eyes and attention were all on you." The birthday girl was practically invisible. I couldn't stop laughing. Hearing her friends teasing, Rosalind chuckled softly before speaking in a low, thoughtful voice. "You don't understand. Miles' family is one of the elite families in City G, and Hayden excels in both looks and temperament. The Miles family would never approve of my ordinary background. They'll surely arrange a marriage for him with someone who matches him in every way. This is the only method I have to make his heart completely mine. Even though we fought today, once his anger subsides in a few days, I'll just give him an excuse, and he'll come back to me without holding a grudge." As soon as the words fell, the restroom door swung open violently. The next second, Trista stood not far away, locking eyes with the two of them. Hearing the commotion, several people by the sink turned their heads, seeing it was her. Rosalind stared blankly for a long moment before forcing a smile. "Trista, what are you doing here? You didn't hear what we were just saying, did you?" Trista, she glanced up at her, slowly walked to the edge of the pool, and said in a faint tone, "I heard everything." Rosalind didn't expect her to admit it so frankly, and her face instantly turned extremely unpleasant. A few close friends also sensed something was wrong and were about to teach her a lesson. Trista turned on the faucet, not giving them a chance to speak. Those who scheme with sincerity will never receive sincerity in return. With just one sentence, Rosalind was left speechless. Her eyes, filled with resentment, swept over the mole at the corner of her eye, then suddenly relaxed. She stopped pretending and sneered, "Just a substitute, who hasn't even received Hayden's love. What right do you have to talk about sincerity in front of me?" "Exactly. And who was it that got dumped in this godforsaken place anyway? What a pitiful girlfriend you are." After mocking her, the three of them held hands and walked away. Trista didn't chase after them either. Hayden played with her sincerity, while Rosalind played with his. Perhaps it was truly karma coming full circle. She walked to the entrance and was about to call a ride, but suddenly remembered this was a mountain villa. Sure enough, several apps showed no vehicles nearby, and whether it was intentional or not, Rosalind seemed to have arranged it with Hayden's friends. Dozens of cars passed by her one after another, yet not a single one offered her a ride. Watching Rosalind get into the last car and leave, not forgetting to roll down the window and throw her a triumphant look, Trista understood the intent behind her revenge. She smiled, then turned and began walking down the mountain on foot. The evening breeze lifted the hem of her skirt, and the surroundings were utterly quiet. With only the unceasing chirping of cicadas keeping her company, she let her mind go blank, and many memories flashed through her mind like scenes from a movie, giving her an unreal feeling. Love, substitute, returning home, birthday, true feelings. She suddenly felt a bit curious. If Hayden knew that the 8 years he had tormented himself for his first love were actually just Rosalind's tactic of playing hard to get, how would he feel? By the time she returned home, it was already 8 p.m. Trista took off her shoes, looked at the blisters rubbed raw on her feet, and hissed in pain as she took out the first aid kit. After tending to her wounds, she was utterly exhausted and went to sleep right after washing up. When she woke up the next day, everything in the room was just the same as the day before. Trista wasn't curious about Hayden's whereabouts. She got up and changed the dressing on her wound. Just as she finished bandaging it, Alfred's call came through. "Trista, did you go to bed early yesterday? Why didn't you reply to my messages? Let me tell you, your fiancé has prepared a bunch of birthday surprises for you." Not only did he transfer a sum of money through me, but he also bought a bunch of jewelry and had it delivered to the house. "You'll be able to use it as soon as you get back. So, what do you think? Not a bad match I picked for you, right?" Trista turned on the speaker, opened the notification bar, and sure enough, saw a transfer of 50 million. Just as she was about to reply, Hayden, who hadn't returned all night, suddenly came back. Match? What match? Hearing this familiar voice, Alfred on the other end of the phone instantly became excited. Trista, who was that speaking just now? Hayden, why is he at your place at this hour? Trista's heart skipped a beat. And she quickly made up an excuse to hang up the phone. Seeing her nervous expression, Hayden's face once again broke into a smile, and he deliberately pretended to be angry. Why did you hang up so quickly? Won't you let me chat with your good friend? Am I, as your boyfriend, really that embarrassing to show off? Trista didn't want to play along with his joke and calmly shot back. Weren't you the one who never wanted him to know about our relationship? Hayden's smile froze on his lips. Seeing her cold expression, he finally realized the young girl might be angry. He walked over to her, took her hand, and like magic, placed the necklace in her palm. Sorry, I was busy getting your birthday gift yesterday. That's why I forgot you at the mountain villa. Forgive me this time, okay? Using such a flimsy lie to brush her off, did he really think she would forgive him? Trista stared fixedly at him, neither speaking nor taking the necklace, after waiting a long time without a response. Hayden sighed, picked up the necklace, and dangled it before her eyes. Why have you been so absent-minded lately? Is something bothering you? Trista finally withdrew her gaze, turned to look out the window, and said faintly, something is bothering me. A friend of mine recently discovered that her long-term boyfriend has been deceiving her all along. She found out the truth and confided in me, asking whether she should forgive him or not. It was over such a trivial matter. He chuckled for a moment and gave a very rational answer. What's there to be upset about? Any form of deception is unforgivable. Just break up. Any form of deception is unforgivable. Trista imitating his tone, she repeated the sentence. Hayden he smiled and nodded, then ruffled her hair again. That's right. My little girl better not be fooled in the future. Watching his gesture, she finally showed a faint smile. Let's both keep this in mind, you and me. Hayden frowned and was about to ask what it meant when the phone in his pocket suddenly rang. Without even looking, he casually pressed the answer button. Who is this? It's me, Hayden, let's talk. Standing close, Trista recognized it as Rosalind's voice. She looked up and saw Hayden's expression freeze for a few seconds before quickly returning to normal. He murmured an acknowledgement, hurriedly ended the call, and made an excuse to leave, looking at the necklace left on the table. Trista stood up and walked into the room. After working on the draft for 2 hours, she thought about taking a break and casually opened her social media feed. Scrolling down, she saw Rosalind, whom she had just added yesterday, had posted an update half an hour ago. 8 years have passed, and you're still the young man who softens as soon as I coax you. It's wonderful. The accompanying picture showed a plate of crayfish and a hand in the midst of peeling one. Looking at those slender hands and the familiar watch on the wrist, Trista smiled faintly and turned off her phone. In the following days, Hayden never came back, only occasionally sending a message saying he was busy. But through Rosalind's social media updates, Trista clearly kept track of his schedule. Watching the sunrise at the beach, enjoying fireworks at the amusement park, camping in the suburbs, Trista knew that Rosalind had posted it for her eyes only. But instead of getting angry and questioning as Rosalind had imagined, she was fully focused on packing her luggage. Over the years in City G, she had bought many things, and even clearing them out in batches would take several days. She had donated all the valuable items, and just as she was about to rest after the charity organization had come to haul everything away, Hayden's call came through. She answered, but it wasn't him speaking, it was his brother Susan. Trista. Hayden got into a conflict with someone and is about to engage in a life-or-death street race. Come to the club quickly and talk him out of it. Hearing this, Trista's right eyelid twitched violently a few times. After hesitating for a while, she finally grabbed her keys and hailed a taxi, rushing toward the club. As soon as the car arrived, Susan, who was waiting at the door, ran over to lead the way, explaining the whole story along the route. A few days ago, Rosalind took a liking to a pair of earrings at the auction house, and while Hayden was in the restroom, someone snatched them up. Hayden, seeing how much she adored them, insisted on buying them from that person. The other party, also a race car enthusiast from a wealthy family, proposed a high-stakes bet. They agreed to race one round. Whoever wins takes the necklace. If it were just a regular track, I wouldn't bother you, but they chose the death road. That route is dangerously treacherous. Even Schumacher would struggle to come out unscathed. Trista, you're Hayden's girlfriend, please think of a way to talk him out of it. By the time the two of them arrived at the scene, it was already too late. The brothers watched the live footage on the big screen, their hearts clenched with anxiety. It's too late, he's already on the road. If anything happens, how are we going to explain it? Stop saying such unlucky things. I knew it the moment it involves Rosalind. This guy goes crazy, and not even 10 horses could hold him back. Before, it was just fights, at most some disciplinary action, but now he's betting his life, he's truly lost his mind. Hearing these complaints, Susan, who hadn't even caught her breath yet, quickly elbowed the brothers. The group turned around and saw Trista, then promptly shut their mouths. 20 minutes later, two roaring sounds approached from the distance, growing clearer. Trista watched the two cars taking turns leading on the screen, then glanced at the final 3 kilometers of the course, her brow tightly furrowed. A few minutes later, two racing cars came into everyone's view. This also meant that the race was about to end. Hayden's car was in the lead, but the gap wasn't large. During the final kilometer sprint, the brothers watched the constantly changing numbers on the screen and cursed angrily on the spot. "Hayden, are you fucking out of your mind?" Trista followed their gaze and saw the black race car speeding by like a bolt of lightning, so fast that only a blur was visible. 100 meters, 50 meters, the final 10 meters. Hayden did not slow down and was the first to cross the finish line, to secure victory. The price he paid was smashing the shock-absorbing equipment beyond the finish line to pieces, then flipping out with both himself and the car. The race ended. The brothers waiting at the finish line dashed over and rescued Hayden, who was covered in blood from the crash. He was vomiting blood heavily, the light in his eyes slowly fading away. "Third, take the necklace. Give it to Rosalind. Don't mention what happened today." Before losing consciousness, Hayden uttered these last words, the only ones spoken. They were meant for Rosalind. They had nothing to do with Trista, who stood waiting nearby. Just a little more, Hayden's left hand bone would have been shattered, nearly ending his career. After the surgery, he was still unconscious, but kept murmuring the name of Rosalind. Watching him still anxious and fearful of loss even in his dreams, Trista silently looked away. A night passed, and the effects of the anesthetic faded. Hayden opened his eyes and looked at the weary-faced person keeping vigil by the hospital bed, his heart softening with tenderness. "Did you stay with me all last night without resting?" Trista pressed her fingers to her brow and softly hummed in agreement, seeing the exhaustion in her eyes. He felt a pang of heartache and gently ruffled her hair. "You've worked hard," Trista said calmly. "It's no trouble. You're my brother's best friend, so it's only right for me to take care of you." Both emotionally and logically, her words felt very off. Shouldn't it be that she's his girlfriend, and that's why she's taking care of him? How did it become about him being her brother's best friend as the reason for her care? Hayden subconsciously realized that the girl was angry because he had risked his life in a street race for someone else. He was about to explain, but the words stuck in his throat, feeling that no explanation would be appropriate. Fortunately, Trista didn't ask him about it, so he changed the subject. "Who's visited me during this time? Your dozen or so brothers, and the club's agent." Hayden's smile slowly faded, leaving only a cold expression, but he still refused to give up, a slight smile curling at the corner of his lips, though there was no warmth in his eyes, just them, no one else. After seeing her nod, his expression turned icy cold, and he didn't speak another word the entire morning. Trista knew who he was waiting for, but she didn't say a word. Hayden stayed in the hospital for a few days, and Trista stayed by his side without leaving for a moment. On the day of discharge, he looked at her thin face, a flicker of heartache in his eyes. "Trista, thank you for these days." Trista picked up the luggage, her expression calm. "No need to thank me. Ever since I came to City G for school, you've been taking care of me at my brother's request. Consider this my way of repaying the favor. Though a few days can't compare to years, I probably haven't caused you much trouble during my time in City G, so let's call it even." This was already the second time she had distanced their relationship. Hearing this, Hayden felt something was off and couldn't help but glance at her. "We're in a relationship, what's all this talk about repaying kindness? Don't I have to keep taking care of you from now on?" Trista averted his gaze, her voice barely audible. "There won't be a from now on." After returning home, Trista received a call from her editor. "Trista, your comic became an instant hit as soon as it was released. Readers are eager for a sequel. What are your thoughts?" These days, Trista has been busy at the hospital and only just learned about this. The editor subtly encouraged her to strike while the iron is hot and create a sequel, but she politely declined, since the entire comic is based on the real-life love story of her and Hayden. She set the ending before the truth was revealed. Continuing to draw further would only be adding a dog's tail to a sable, an unnecessary and inferior addition. Trista opened her long unused Twitter and looked at the rapidly increasing comments in the back end, a smile appearing in her eyes. Seeing that she was finally a bit happier, Hayden leaned in and teased her again. "The comic's getting a good response. How about I throw a victory party for my big shot cartoonist?" Trista, before she could stop him, he had already sent out countless messages. She could only swallow her words of refusal and changed the subject instead. Have you read the comic yet? No, I can't get into shoujo manga. Just tell me what it's about. You haven't even read it. And you're already talking about throwing a celebration party. It was just a pretense to see Rosalind one more time, watching Hayden typing at lightning speed on the keyboard, looking completely nonchalant. Trista didn't waste any more words and got up to return to her room. This victory celebration was held in the hotel lobby. Rosalind did come, but not alone. She brought a male companion, and the two chatted non-stop with their arms around each other. Hayden saw it and was on the verge of crushing the glass in his hand. Trista paid no attention to his mood and got up to go to the restroom. When she came out again, she noticed a under maintenance sign at the door and was just wondering if something had happened when a figure suddenly appeared from the corner. It was Rosalind's male companion, blocking her path, looking at her with a flirtatious gaze and whistling incessantly. Trista frowned and tried to step around him, but he grabbed her hand and pressed his alcohol-laden mouth toward her face. The sudden move frightened her, turning her face pale, and she instinctively raised her hand to resist. "What are you doing?" The man raised an eyebrow, revealing an arrogant and lewd smile. "What's with the act of a chaste and virtuous woman? Rosalind told me you're really desperate for men, aren't you? Stop competing with her. How about being with me?" As he spoke, he pressed her against the sink, using his height and strength to attempt to assault her. Trista struggled desperately, but no matter how hard she tried, she couldn't break free. Just as he was about to tear open her collar, she suddenly felt the flower pot on the counter. Without a second thought, she grabbed it and smashed it against the back of his head. With a loud thud, the man, his face twisted in a grimace, collapsed limply to the floor. After saving herself, Trista didn't dare to look at him and forced herself to walk out of the bathroom. As soon as she stepped out, she saw Rosalind waiting outside. Trista had been well protected by her family since childhood and was a gentle-natured girl. But no matter how soft her temper was, she couldn't control her emotions after just experiencing a deliberately arranged assault. Remembering what the man had just said, Trista didn't hesitate. She raised her hand and slapped her hard across the face. "Rosalind, you did that on purpose, didn't you?" After being hit, and seeing her furious expression, Rosalind was not angry at all, and could even laugh. "That male companion. So what if I deliberately found him? I did it out of concern for you. Since I returned, you, the stand-in, have been left alone in an empty room. Aren't you lonely? With years of experience in the world of romance, I'm sure I can satisfy you." Hearing her insulting words, the enraged Trista could no longer hold back and raised her hand again. This time, before the slap could land on Rosalind's face, it was intercepted by someone. Trista turned her head and saw Hayden with a gloomy expression. Having waited for the right person to arrive, Rosalind immediately put on a pitiful look, threw herself into his arms, and let tears fall drop by drop. "Hayden, does your girlfriend hate me that much? I just happened to be in her way, and she tried to hit me. Boo-hoo." Seeing the person in his arms crying so pitifully, Hayden's face instantly darkened. "Trista, why are you picking on someone for no reason? Is this what Alfred taught you, or is it what I taught you?" Trista, her eyes reddened with anger, her voice trembling with lingering fear. "For no reason. There are surveillance cameras in the hallway. Go check them yourself. Why would I hit her? And what exactly did she do?" She had intended to present the facts and evidence. Who would have thought Hayden would unconditionally believe Rosalind was innocent, with no intention of checking any surveillance footage? "No matter what happened, you shouldn't have hit anyone. Besides, Rosalind has only met you once. What could she possibly have done to you? You must apologize to her." He actually made her apologize to Rosalind, making the victim apologize to the perpetrator. Trista felt a sharp pain in her heart and shook her head firmly. "I'm not wrong. No matter what, I won't apologize." Trista refused to apologize, and Hayden demanded an explanation. Neither of them was willing to back down, Rosalind afraid that further delay would expose them. She lifted her tear-filled face and pulled him to leave. "Hayden, just take it as my fault. Please stop arguing with your girlfriend and calm down." "Okay." Hayden wouldn't listen at all. Seeing no other way, Rosalind had to steel herself and twist her left ankle on purpose. Seeing her injured, Hayden's expression was immediately replaced with panic and heartache. He no longer cared about Trista, picked up the person, and ran downstairs, watching the two figures fade into the distance. Trista's surging passion gradually cooled, replaced by endless grievance and sorrow. Tears she had held back for so long instantly fell. She quickly wiped them away, returned to the hall to grab her bag, and left the hotel. Just as she stepped out of the hotel entrance, a car came speeding straight toward her. Trista, unable to dodge in time, she was knocked onto the flower bed, covered in blood. The pain made her break out in a cold sweat, and by the time she was taken to the hospital, her consciousness was already hazy. Seeing how severe her injuries were, The nurse used her fingerprint to unlock the phone, found the pinned contact on WeChat, and made a voice call. After more than 10 seconds, a deep, still angry voice came from the phone. Hayden S. Rosalind is injured, which is the only reason I'm not holding it against you. But that doesn't mean you're not at fault. You must come and apologize to her. The nurse was taken aback for a moment before truthfully informing them about Trista's condition. Hayden was still furious and simply refused to believe such a coincidence could happen. Even if she really was in a car accident, she still has to apologize before I'll go and sign the papers. With that, he hung up the phone without waiting for a response from the other end. The nurse had no choice but to forcibly wake up Trista and ask if she could contact any other relatives to come. She didn't want to worry her family, and couldn't think of anyone else, so she endured the excruciating pain and, with her still bleeding hand, shakily signed her name on the surgery consent form. The surgery was successfully completed, and she would need to stay in the hospital for a few more days for observation. Trista was alone in the hospital with no one to care for her, having to drag her sick body to handle everything herself. A few nurses nearby were gossiping, saying that Miles' family's young master's girlfriend was injured, and he had booked the entire floor upstairs, tenderly and patiently taking care of her every day, seeming deeply fond of her. Trista lay on the hospital bed listening silently. She took out her phone, cleared out all her past relationship posts one by one, and then deleted all of Hayden's contact information. On the day she was discharged from the hospital, she went alone to complete the procedures and happened to run into Rosalind being carried back to the ward by Hayden at the elevator entrance. She gave a cold glance and turned her head away, then headed toward the stairwell. Hayden caught sight of her out of the corner of his eye, but by the time he turned around, there was no one beside him. He instinctively thought it must be an illusion. After all, Trista was so afraid of pain back in school, when her knee got hit by a ball. He had held and comforted her for a long, long time. If she had really been in a car accident, how could she have held back her grievances and not told him? After returning home, Trista called a housekeeping service and had them throw away everything she had previously cleared out. Then she walked into the study and tore up every page of the diary that had recorded 8 years of her life. The flutter of first love at 15, the courage to travel north alone for him at 17. The joy of fulfilling her wish at 18. All those youthful sentiments that had trapped her for 8 years vanished completely on this day. She placed the breakup letter where Hayden would see it as soon as he returned, then pushed her last bit of luggage out the door and hailed a taxi downstairs. The driver saw that she was injured and quickly helped put the suitcase into the trunk. She turned around, wanting to take one last look at the city she had lived in for 6 years, but instead, she met a pair of familiar eyes. Hayden had just gotten out of the car and, upon seeing her, his expression softened considerably. Going somewhere, Trista looked at him quietly, the love that was once in her eyes completely gone. What is it? Hayden didn't notice, only feeling that she was still unwilling to yield, a trace of helplessness flickering in his eyes. Came back to get some things, and wanted to talk to you while I'm here. No. Trista hadn't even finished her refusal when Hayden's phone rang. He answered it, and his brows slowly furrowed. After hanging up the phone, he turned back and opened the car door again. Before getting in, he hastily left a sentence. Since you haven't calmed down yet, let's talk next time. Be careful when you go out. And remember to come back early. Come back. Won't be coming back. Only after that car was out of sight Trista did she get into the car at the driver's urging. She closed the car door and looked out the window at the impending storm, her eyes as still and lifeless as stagnant water. Miss, where to? The airport. Several hours later, the plane landed safely in City D. As soon as she exited the gate, Trista spotted her family waiting at the entrance and quickened her pace. From a distance, Alfred noticed the bandage wrapped around her hand and hurried forward to take her luggage, his eyes filled with concern. How did you get hurt? Why didn't you tell the family? Father Quinton Mrs. Quinton also saw it. Her face fell as well, and she carefully examined the injury. Does it hurt? If something happens, you have to tell Mom and Dad, so we can come pick you up. Wrapped up so tightly. It must be a serious injury. Let's skip the meal and go to the hospital right now. After being injured for so long, Trista was cared for like this for the first time. The suppressed grievances and sadness in her heart could no longer be held back, turning into tears that streamed down. As soon as the daughter started crying, Mrs. Quinton also teared up, and the father and son grew anxious, immediately taking out their phones to contact a doctor. Seeing everyone so worried about her, Trista felt a bit embarrassed. Wiping her tears, she sobbed and tried to comfort them. Dad, Mom, brother, I'm fine, it's not a serious injury. I just missed you all so much since it's been so long since we last saw each other. Hearing this, the three of them finally felt relieved. Alfred stroked her head, his tone full of indignation. Who told you to go so far away? After graduation, you refused to come back no matter what. And now you finally realize how good home is. Seeing her son acting all high and mighty as the older brother again, Mrs. Quinton grabbed his ear and began scolding him as she walked. Just yesterday you were fussing about the weather for half the day, worried the flight would be delayed, and now that Trista is back, you're putting on an act. If you had shown a little more concern for your sister, wouldn't she have come back sooner? Watching Alfred get beaten, Trista instantly burst into laughter through her tears. The dark clouds that had lingered in her heart for so long slowly dissipated under the care of her family. Her mood was just like the warm summer sun outside the window, radiant and brilliant. Because Trista complained of being hungry, the family went home first to have a meal. Whether it was because her mood had improved or the home-cooked meal was especially delicious, she ate half as much more than usual this time. After the meal, she felt a bit drowsy and was about to go back to her bedroom to rest. Alfred insisted on taking her out. Mom and Dad said that your injury needs to be properly checked by a doctor for them to feel at ease. Just come along with me obediently. He even brought up his parents. Trista had no choice but to yawn and get in the car. Along the way, the siblings chatted about trivial family matters. Trista gradually woke up. She looked at the increasingly deserted streets outside the window, searching her memory, and spoke hesitantly. Is this the way to the hospital? Who told you we're going to the hospital? The doctor I'm taking you to see is no ordinary hospital doctor. You know, Trista knew right away that her brother was up to his old tricks again. It was probably another one of his friends who had returned from studying abroad, someone he was immensely proud of and just had to show off to her. And Alfred did not disappoint, rattling off a long list of the doctor's titles. What's the youngest medical professor in the country? What pioneer of the discipline? He rattled off a whole bunch of titles. Trista made a show of clicking her tongue in admiration. Then, under Alfred's smug gaze, deliberately asked him, Bro, your friend is so steady and mature at such a young age, holding such a high position and great authority. So why is it that at 27, you still get your ear pulled and scolded by Mom? Just as they reached the destination, Alfred parked the car and was about to turn around to teach his sister, who had been taunting him since she returned, a lesson. Turning his head to see the person waiting at the door, a bright smile spread across his face again. You're sharp-tongued with me now, but remember to treat everyone equally when you meet them later. I'm curious to see, with two people and two mouths, who will win when you argue in the future. Argue? Why would she argue with the doctor for no reason? Trista looked over with confusion in her eyes, but only saw Alfred's back as he got out of the car. He was probably still holding a grudge, not even bothering to open the car door for her, swaggering away as he greeted the people at the entrance. Trista might not have given her brother any face, but she still felt a bit nervous in front of strangers, not to mention that she was about to meet a doctor next. Quinton family all knew that Trista was terrified of seeing doctors her whole life, so she sat quietly in the car, observing. Trying to delay the meeting, after chatting with an old friend for a long time, Alfred finally realized his sister was still in the car. He turned back wide-eyed, standing in front of the car and waving at his sister, urging her to come out and greet everyone. Trista took a deep breath, adjusted the expression on her face, and was about to reach out to open the car door. With a thud, the car door was opened from the outside. As she looked up, her eyes met a pair of deep, penetrating ones. Upon seeing her, a ripple of emotion stirred in those originally calm and unruffled eyes. In the shifting of his gaze, the cold aura that naturally surrounded the newcomer quietly faded, leaving only a gentle and warm demeanor. Ms. Trista, it's a pleasure to meet you. I'm Alfred's friend, Payne. Trista was stunned for a moment before she reacted, instinctively extending her injured hand to shake his, looking at the hand wrapped in bandages like a zongza in front of him. Payne thought for a second, then decisively extended his right hand about 10 centimeters forward to support her elbow. Trista was shocked by his action, and only when she looked down did she realize she had extended her injured right hand. Her face immediately flushed bright red. Just as she was awkwardly unsure how to handle the situation, Payne chivalrous shielded the low car door and politely reminded her, You're injured, be careful getting out of the car. Trista finally understood his intention and quickly bent down, hopping out of the car. As soon as she landed, she quickly withdrew her right hand and gave a slight nod of thanks. Thank you, you're welcome. Alfred, who had been watching the scene from the side, couldn't help but laugh out loud at the sight of his sister's bright red ears. Both of them turned around at the sound, and he quickly covered his mouth, pretending as if nothing had happened. I've finished the task from above. So I'm done here. I'm off to play a few rounds of pool. You two make yourselves at home. Make yourselves at home. With that, he slipped away as if his feet were greased, striding confidently and familiarly toward the golf course behind the villa, leaving her and the doctor they had just met behind. What kind of brother is he? Trista gritted her teeth in anger, silently cursing him to take a nasty fall. Payne, on the other hand, remained perfectly at ease, after gently closing the car door. He gestured for Trista to enter. Out of respect for the doctor, she didn't dare to lift her eyes, silently following him at a distance of 3 steps. Once they entered the living room, she instinctively took a seat on the sofa. Payne went up to the second floor and came down with a very large box. Trista instinctively began to untie the bandage on her hand, but because it was her left hand and the knot was tight, she struggled for a long time without success. Seeing that she was about to break into a sweat, Payne, who had been waiting quietly nearby, finally spoke in a gentle voice. "I'll do it." Trista looked up at him, hesitated for a moment, then nodded. With her permission, Payne knelt down, gently placed her hand on the armrest of the sofa, and slowly untied the tight knot. Layer by layer, the gauze was removed, revealing a gruesome wound over 20 centimeters long. Just one glance, Payne frowned deeply. He looked at Trista, his eyes full of concern. "Such a long wound. How did you get hurt?" "Hit by an electric bike, crashed and my hand scraped against the edge of a flower bed." In front of the doctor, Trista didn't dare to lie and could only tell the truth. Payne, after listening, wrapped the gauze back as it was, tied it again, then moved aside the medical kit and stood up. Watching his strange actions, Trista showed a flicker of surprise on her face. Wasn't he going to check the wound? Why did he wrap it back up? After sending a few messages on the phone, Payne picked up the keys on the table and turned to look at her. "Let's go, get a thorough checkup at the hospital." "No need, I already got checked in City G. The doctor said it was nothing serious, that's why I was discharged." Trista refused, but it was no use. Payne gazed fixedly at her, his eyes filled with unwavering determination, yet his tone was exceedingly gentle. "After a car accident, it's best to have a full checkup. You'll need your hands for drawing in the future." Hearing that last sentence, Trista was immediately convinced and stood up at once to leave with him. The two hurried to the nearest hospital and underwent a full-body examination. After receiving the checkup results and confirming that everything was fine, Trista finally breathed a sigh of relief. Looking at Payne, who was focused on applying medicine to her, she expressed her gratitude very sincerely. "Thank you for your trouble today, Dr. Payne." "You're welcome, just call me Payne." "Payne, isn't this a bit inappropriate? This is our first meeting, and he's my brother's friend. No matter how you look at it, it's too intimate to address him so casually, right?" Trista didn't dare to make a sound, silently mulling it over in her mind when her phone suddenly dinged. She picked it up with her left hand and tapped to open it. It was a message from Alfred. "Where'd you go? Shy now? The fiancé I picked for you isn't bad, right?" Trista's eyes froze the moment they swept from left to right and landed on the words fiancé. Fiancé, Payne is her fiancé. She was shocked by the news, abruptly withdrawing her hand and looking at the person before her with disbelief in her eyes. Payne remained relatively calm, glancing over with a composed expression as he offered a few words of concern. "Does it hurt? Did I use too much force?" Trista only then did she realize her awkwardness and quickly shook her head a few times. Seeing that she seemed more startled than in pain, Payne reflected on his earlier words and actions as he pulled back the hand that hadn't finished applying the medicine, then resumed his work. After learning the truth, Trista even held her breath, her eyes occasionally sweeping over the person in front of her, secretly observing, the eyelashes are long and curled, a little enviable. The fingers are slender, perfect for painting some designs on them. The hair is thick and lush. Not very typical of a medical student. In the time it took to apply the medicine, Trista had a dozen thoughts swirling in her mind, growing more and more entranced the longer she looked. When Payne finished bandaging and looked up, he saw her scrutinizing gaze, a flicker of surprise in his eyes. "What's wrong, Doc?" "Tor, Payne, brother." Within a few seconds, she had cycled through 3 forms of address, none of which felt quite right, ultimately landing on a strange and awkward title. Seeing his inquiring gaze, Trista hesitated and struggled for a long time, but finally decided to ask tactfully, "Were the jewelry pieces at my home personally chosen by you?" Payne nodded slightly. "Yes, don't you like them? When you have time, shall we go pick out some new ones together?" Trista quickly shook her head and forced a bright smile. "I like it, I really do." After spending a few hours together, he finally saw her smile, although the smile didn't seem entirely genuine. Payne felt the hidden worry in his heart gradually fade away. "At least the first impression from our initial meeting was quite pleasant." That was enough. Rosalind had been in the hospital for a week, and her bones felt weak from lying down for so long. On the day she was discharged, City G finally stopped raining after 3 days. Hayden, after seeing her home, He turned to leave immediately. She wanted to ask him to stay and have a meal together, but he frowned and made excuses to decline. After watching his figure disappear through the doorway, Rosalind put away her feigned disappointment and picked up her phone to call a few girlfriends. Trista was discharged from the hospital. I didn't see her there these past few days. She's really lucky. How did she survive that crash? Through a door. Hayden heard Rosalind's smug tone and paused his hand on the doorknob. Hayden left, probably to find her. It's fine. I'll just send a random message later, and he'll definitely come back. He got his head busted open. She really went all out. Next time, let's get more people. Let's see if she can still dodge it. Hayden definitely believes me. Trista wanted to check the surveillance footage, but he didn't even pay attention. You should have seen her face then. I almost laughed and gave it away on the spot. Rosalind, each of these unrestrained complaints struck Hayden like a thunderbolt. Surveillance. He suddenly recalled the situation before leaving the bar and tensed up completely. Had something really happened before he rushed over that day? His hand unconsciously clenched, his brow tightly furrowed. After a few more laughs echoed in the room, it fell back into silence. Hayden was overwhelmed by a tidal wave of emotions. He no longer cared about the car keys left inside. He turned and rushed out to hail a taxi, heading straight for the bar. Using the excuse of having lost something, Hayden successfully retrieved the surveillance footage from a week ago. The footage showed that Rosalind's friends cleared everyone out of the restroom, and after Trista entered, they placed a maintenance sign at the door and left. Then Rosalind's male companion, taking advantage of the lack of people around, walked into the restroom. A few minutes later, Trista ran out in a panic and slapped Rosalind, who was waiting at the door. The surveillance footage clearly recorded their conversation. Hayden's expression grew increasingly grim as Rosalind spoke those words, and what he found hardest to accept was the video recorded by the door camera. Rosalind's two sisters rode an electric scooter, speeding all the way over, and directly knocked Trista out of the camera's view. He recalled that phone call from that night, and then thought of the words Rosalind had just said on the phone. Feeling as if all the blood in his body had frozen, his heart pounded like a drum, and he took out his phone to send a message to Trista. As soon as the send button was pressed, a failed delivery pop-up and a red exclamation mark appeared on the screen. Trista deleted him. The moment this thought crossed his mind, Hayden's hand trembled uncontrollably, and he quickly switched to the dialing page to call her. After a long series of beeps, a cold automated female voice responded. Is the phone also blocked? Hayden felt as if something was stuck in his throat, making it hard to even breathe. He could no longer control himself, rushing downstairs to hail a cab and hurry home. As soon as he pushed the door open and saw the living room, which felt utterly unfamiliar to him, he froze completely. The display cabinet that once held many dolls, the photos hanging on the wall, the desk piled with sketches, everywhere the eye could see, places that once held Trista's belongings were now completely empty. With nothing left, he walked into the room in disbelief, only to find that the study, bathroom, workspace, and bedroom everywhere was equally and unnervingly clean. Hayden turned the entire apartment upside down but found nothing related to Trista. She, along with all her belongings, seemed to have vanished into thin air, disappearing without a trace. But she had no acquaintances in City G. Without even saying a word, where could she have gone? Hayden's mind went blank, his eyes filled with confusion, his eyes darted around, and his peripheral vision suddenly caught sight of a letter on the bedside table. He hurried over to open it, and as soon as he saw the first line, his whole body froze. Hayden, let's break up. Hayden's phone call came through while Alfred was being forced by his mother to peel lychees for his dear sister. His hands were covered in sticky juice, making it inconvenient, so he ordered her to take out the phone. Trista picked it up and saw the caller ID. Her smiling face froze for a moment before quickly returning to normal. She pressed the answer button, held the phone to Alfred's ear, then took a bite of a fresh lychee. The jelly-like soft flesh burst open between her lips and teeth, its sweet aroma filling her entire throat. So sweet. Hayden said something, and Alfred frowned, turning his head with a strange expression. Faced with her brother's odd look, Trista remained calm, wiped his hand haphazardly with a few tissues, and then shoved the phone toward him. Alfred was about to ask when the butler suddenly entered with Payne. As soon as she saw him, Mrs. Quinton quickly stood up to greet him. After exchanging a few pleasantries, Payne walked over and sat down beside Trista. With the brother-in-law present, the words that were on the tip of her tongue couldn't be spoken. Alfred had no choice but to give up. He walked outside with his phone and only then began to speak with a laugh and a scold. Hayden, what do you want with my sister for no reason? She's busy right now and doesn't have time to take your call. Is it really busy or just pretending to be busy? Hayden, unable to gauge the situation, his tone grew increasingly cold. How serious are her injuries? Upon hearing this, Alfred flashed a look of surprise in his eyes. You know about her injury too, why didn't you tell me earlier? Otherwise, I would have gone to City G to pick her up, and we could have had a couple of drinks while we were at it. Hayden was completely preoccupied with why Trista wanted to break up and had no mood to talk about drinking. He pressed his fingers to his forehead and steered the conversation back on track. Is she really busy? I have something to ask her, is it really not a good time? Hearing the odd tone in his voice, Alfred turned to glance back, just in time to see Payne peeling a lychee and handing it to his sister, a knowing, almost aunt-like smile instantly spreading across his face. She really is busy, would I lie to you, bro? Hearing this smiling voice, Hayden's already flustered heart grew even heavier. He knew that these words were most likely an excuse. Alfred had always doted on this younger sister. It must be that Trista didn't want to answer the phone, so she made up an excuse to deceive him. He was burning with anxiety, but in front of his brother, he couldn't reveal too much. He could only suppress the restlessness in his heart and was about to book a flight to City D. On the other end of the phone, Alfred seemed to remember something and exclaimed several times, "Are you free next week? There's a happy occasion at home. Would you like to come and have some fun, bro, you know?" Hayden was just struggling to find a suitable excuse to fly over. Hearing this, he immediately put down the mouse and casually asked about the time. When? Let me see if I'm free, next Friday. Even if you're not free, you better make time, or else I'll have to teach you a lesson next time we meet. 5 days later, not too long to wait, Hayden agreed, and before hanging up, he emphasized once more, just to be sure, remember to tell Trista to call me back. Got it, got it. I'll pass on Hayden's message word for word. She's really busy right now, whether she calls back is up to her. Really busy, aren't you injured? Work has to be put on hold, so what could you be busy with? Hayden was just wondering when suddenly, Mrs. Quinton's voice came through the phone. Alfred, we're heading to the bridal shop first. Hurry up and come over. Bridal shop, who's getting married? Chapter 15. Hayden was about to ask. Alfred didn't give him the chance. Hastily said goodbye and hung up, as impatient as a groom on his wedding night. Thinking of this, Hayden recalled the words he had just said. Good news, both roommates are going, and if he doesn't go, they'll give him a hard time. Is Alfred getting married? No wonder Trista went back without even saying a word. Hayden called his assistant and asked her to prepare a generous gift in advance and book a flight ticket. After all, they've been good brothers for 10 years, and with him about to get married, he couldn't show up empty-handed. After arranging everything, Hayden looked at the now empty room and didn't feel as panicked and helpless as before. He picked up the letter beside him and directly burned it in the ashtray, watching the leaping flames. He rubbed his eyes and was about to rest when the screen suddenly lit up. He picked up his phone and saw that it was Rosalind calling him over. His expression, which had just regained some composure, darkened again, remembering the words he had overheard at her doorstep and the scenes he had witnessed on the bar's computer screen. He felt nothing but a chilling coldness in his heart. Could it be that, in places beyond his sight, Rosalind had a second face? How much of the obedience, arrogance, kindness, and affection she had shown him was actually real? Hayden was unwilling to suspect her, yet he had no choice but to do so. He spent a long time alone in his bedroom before finally making up his mind and making a call to Susan. Susan, didn't you say last time that Rosalind's sister added you? Just invite her out for drinks and get her drunk. I need you to help me find out a few things. It wasn't until she stepped into the bridal shop that Trista finally felt the reality of getting married. She looked at those fluffy and soft skirt hems, like clouds, and a complex mix of emotions welled up in her heart. Once upon a time, marriage was indeed on her schedule. It had only been a few months, and she was really about to step into the wedding hall. But the groom was no longer the one she had once believed in. Recalling the past, Trista felt everything was hazy and dreamlike, as if she had watched a movie. Now, the curtain has fallen, and she has stepped out of the theater, detaching herself from the empathetic protagonist, ready to stride boldly into the future, and by her side, the one who will embark on this new story with her is Payne. She doesn't know what the road ahead will look like, how long this marriage will last, or whether she'll regret the decision to marry young in the future. She held no expectations for the unknown. Similarly, she harbored no pessimistic thoughts either. After all, in these brief 3 days of interaction, Payne had left a rather favorable impression on her. He and Hayden were two completely different people. When he was with her, he never made any jokes that would upset her, and his gaze was always focused and firm. He would contact many friends to help her find medicine to remove the scars. He would tentatively try to get closer to her, asking about her likes, dislikes, and hobbies, yet always keeping the distance within a reasonable range. Gradually, Trista grew accustomed to his quiet presence by her side, and to his gentle and meticulous care. Just like now, Payne knew she was injured and inconvenienced. So he specifically called his cousin, who was similar in height and build, to help her try on the wedding dress. He knew that girls care about their appearance, so while she was picking out a wedding dress, he would help look for suitable gloves to cover the wound that hadn't yet healed. Getting married is clearly a matter between the two of them, yet he arranged everything meticulously, making sure every detail was perfect and flawless, just watching him try on the gloves himself. Checking the material and fit to see if they would affect the wound, Trista felt reassured. She raised her arm and nudged Alfred, who was fiddling with the veil, and gave him a rare compliment. "Brother, you really have a good eye for picking a groom. I'm quite satisfied, of course, with someone as handsome and dashing as me. How could the person I pick be anything less?" Alfred beamed with pride, picking up the veil and holding it up to her head. Trista played along by giving him a thumbs up, then lowered her voice and started fishing for information. Why would such an outstanding young talent like him agree to an arranged marriage with me? When this topic came up, Alfred raised an eyebrow, looking even more smug. Payne is famously known as the research iceberg since childhood. He's been completely devoted to his medical career. Matters of love and romance are like fleeting clouds in his eyes. His family, seeing him like this, naturally urged him to settle down. A few of us close friends tried to help by introducing potential matches, over a dozen of them, but he didn't take a liking to any. Then, on my birthday, I invited him over. He saw the family portrait at my place and stared at you for a long while. I sensed an opportunity and casually brought it up, and to my surprise, he actually responded. That's when I thought of setting you two up, but you were so stubborn and refused to budge. If it weren't for his patience waiting for you for over half a year, you wouldn't have been this lucky. Trista, upon second thought, the first time I heard about the arranged marriage was indeed half a year ago. At that time, she still didn't know about Rosalind's situation, so no matter how much her family persuaded her, she didn't agree. Payne knew she was unwilling and waited for her for half a year. Trista was somewhat surprised, Alfred seeing her lost in thought. He gently flicked her forehead. "By the way, before going out, Hayden called me and said he wanted to ask you something. Remember to contact him." Trista nodded absent-mindedly, though she had no real intention of reaching out. Seeing her expression, Alfred finally felt a bit of his suspicion fade away. "He's taken care of you for so long. There's at least some sibling-like affection between you. I've invited him to your wedding on your behalf." As soon as these words were spoken, Trista was completely stunned. "Does he know I'm getting married?" Alfred narrowed his eyes, recalling what he had said before leaving, and missed the shocked expression on her face. "I forgot to mention this, but he should know it's you, right? Otherwise, if I were to get married, he would definitely come to be a groomsman." Seeing the uncertain look on his face, Trista was momentarily at a loss for words. What an unreliable brother. Susan looked very troubled when she brought the voice recorder over. Hayden reached out to take it, but he held on tightly, hesitating as he offered a few words of advice. "Hayden, maybe just let it go. You've waited 8 years for Rosalind and still haven't moved on. Some things really don't need to be dug into too deeply. It's better for both you and her." Hearing such tactful words from a brother he'd grown up side by side with, Hayden instantly realized that the content of this recording was probably even more complicated than he had imagined. That already wavering heart slowly sank into the boundless darkness. He darkened his expression, snatched the recorder forcefully, and pressed the play button. "I still can't figure out why Rosalind suddenly broke up and went abroad back then. Back then, it was Mrs. Miles who talked to Rosalind, saying that Miles' family would never agree to let her marry in, and then gave her a large sum of money. Rosalind was young and got scared, so she took the money and went abroad. Later, we heard that Hayden's several girlfriends all resembled Rosalind, so we jokingly mentioned it to her. After she found out, she immediately returned to the country, probably still couldn't let go. Since you haven't let go, why not just tell Hayden directly?" "Hayden hasn't let go of her either. As long as she speaks up, they can get back together. You don't understand. This is called playing hard to get." Rosalind said that only by quarreling and having disagreements, making Hayden remember what happened 8 years ago, will he stay by her side wholeheartedly. It wasn't until today that Hayden finally learned the real reason why Rosalind insisted on breaking up with him. It was all for money. He laid his heart bare and offered it to her. Yet it still couldn't compare to these tens of millions in breakup money. He didn't know what he was feeling right now. He just couldn't help but let out a cold laugh. Not sure if he was laughing at his own naivety or at her clever calculations, seeing his good friend in this state. Susan knew that Hayden had probably given up completely. He let out a heavy sigh and played another video. The footage showed a hospital, with the camera focused on Brother Zhao, the one who had been knocked out at the bar. After being threatened, He looked at the camera with a face full of fear and hesitantly began to recount what had happened that day. It was Rosalind who told me to deal with Ginger, MS, Trista S, saying she's too restless, told me to teach her some manners. Halfway through the video, Hayden couldn't bear to listen any longer. He snatched the camera and smashed it against the wall. His flushed, angry face slowly lost its color. Only a desperate grey desolation remained. The room was quiet for a long time, so long that Susan was almost dozing off in a daze when Hayden finally spoke in a hoarse voice. Let's organize a gathering. Invite everyone, no one is allowed to miss it. After choosing the wedding dress, relatives and friends from both sides tactfully made excuses to leave, giving the evening to the engaged couple, gazing at the boundless, brilliant sunset on the horizon. Trista was in high spirits and suggested going for a walk. With many people by the river, Payne stood protectively on her right side, carefully shielding her to prevent anyone from bumping into her wound. Along the way, there were many stalls selling toys and snacks. Trista glanced a few times at a balloon bouquet twisted into the shape of a sunflower, and he noticed immediately, buying it and handing it to her. Many children around saw it, looking over with eyes full of envy. Whispering and discussing with their friends, why is this older sister still so fond of balloons at her age? Trista felt a bit embarrassed upon hearing this and hid the balloon behind her back. Payne unexpectedly took a few more balloon flowers and gave them to 3 children, telling them very seriously, "You are little friends, and I am a big friend. As long as you like it, everyone can have their own flower balloon." The children blushed, thanked her, and ran off laughing and playing with their balloons. Payne turned around and saw Trista staring at him in a daze, a soft light glimmering in his eyes. "What's wrong?" Trista snapped out of her trance, shook her head gently, and revealed a faint smile. "Being an adult for too long. I haven't heard such an adorable conversation in a long time. Then, when we have time in the future, let's go out more often. Seeing more things should help with your creative work too, right? Everyone is looking forward to your new comic." Hearing him suddenly bring up her work, Trista showed a flicker of surprise on her face. "You know I draw comics. Have you seen my work?" Payne admitted generously. "I've seen it. It's very well drawn," though the praise was simple, because it came from Payne's mouth. Trista was still moved. This was the first time she had heard someone close to her express approval of the dream she was pursuing. She raised her eyes, looking at that honest face so close at hand, and the thought in her heart grew even more resolute. "Have you read the latest published comic book?" Her tone was so natural that it left Payne unsure how to respond to her. But in the end, he still chose to be honest. "I've seen it," an expected answer, which actually made Trista breathe a sigh of relief. She watched the red sun gradually sinking in the distance, the evening wind making her long hair flutter. And even her voice seemed to grow distant. "It's getting late. Have a cup of coffee. I think you have the right to know the true ending of that comic." Miles' family owns a mountain villa outside the city, which is usually deserted, but on Tuesday night it was bustling with activity. All the young gentlemen and ladies who are close with Hayden received invitations and arrived punctually. Once inside, everyone looked at the hall decorated like a wedding venue and exchanged puzzled glances. "Hayden, are you planning to propose? Who is the main character?" Everyone looked around but didn't see the figure of the young girlfriend he had just made public a few days ago. They all turned their gaze to Rosalind, who was wearing a gorgeous dress, and began whispering among themselves, "New clothes can't compare to the old, and new people can't compare to the old." It seems Hayden ended up choosing his first love after all. Poor ex-girlfriend. She probably doesn't even know the reason for the breakup. Hearing the whispers around her and seeing the hall filled with roses of all colors, Rosalind was filled with pride. She knew all along, Hayden would ultimately choose her. He had liked her for 8 years, his heart never changing. Trista, what right did she have to compete with her? As the banquet was about to begin, a few girlfriends pulled her into the restroom, took out the cosmetics they carried with them, and insisted on touching up her makeup. "Wait a moment, Hayden is about to propose in public. Rosalind, you have to keep your best appearance." "Exactly. Those young ladies outside are probably going to be green with envy later. You've got to outshine every single one of them." Listening to her friend's flattery, Rosalind couldn't stop grinning from ear to ear. She narrowed her eyes, as if already seeing the blissful scene of her dream coming true. Everything was as Rosalind had imagined. At the climax of the banquet, the long unseen Hayden made his entrance in a black suit, accompanied by the sudden sound of a romantic piano melody. Holding a bouquet of red roses, he walked up to Rosalind under the gaze of the entire crowd and took out the ring box from his pocket. As soon as the box was opened, the 20-carat diamond ring was revealed, instantly drawing gasps of amazement from everyone present. Many of the young ladies present had already guessed the origin of the ring and gasped in astonishment. Isn't this the eternal heart that sold for $1 billion the other day? It's actually in Hayden's possession. Using this ring to propose, Hayden must truly cherish Miss Rosalind deeply. These envious voices reached Rosalind's ears, giving her more confidence. She slightly raised her chin, revealing her slender neck, like a noble white swan. But in front of Hayden, she had to continue playing dumb, so she raised her hand to half cover her lips, feigning surprise. Hayden, what are you? Hayden didn't answer her, but instead showed her the answer with his actions. He stepped back a few paces, knelt on one knee, raised those captivating peach blossom eyes, and asked with a beaming smile the words that Rosalind had always dreamed of hearing. Will you marry me? Someone started it, cheering loudly, and the whole crowd followed. Erupting into a clamor of screams and shouts like boiling water overflowing, Rosalind was deeply moved and slowly extended her right hand. I do. Before the word yes could be spoken, the piano piece came to an eerie halt. The romantic atmosphere that had been building for so long vanished in an instant. The guests on the scene turned their heads in unison, trying to figure out where the malfunction had occurred, but they couldn't pinpoint the issue. They could only tacitly shift their gaze to the star of the banquet and the mastermind behind the proposal, Hayden. Rosalind also felt a bit let down, pouting and acting coquettishly. Hayden, this piano piece, I was the one who stopped it. Hayden stood up as he gave her the answer. By the time he straightened up and lifted his head, the smile on his face had completely vanished, leaving only a cold indifference. Seeing his change in expression, many could sense that something major was about to happen. They all held their breath. Only Rosalind remained lost in the beautiful dream of being proposed to, sulking and throwing a little tantrum as she always did. If you keep this up, I won't say yes to you. Hayden nodded with an indifferent expression, dropping a line that made everyone in the room widen their eyes. Whether you agree or not doesn't matter, because the person I intended to propose to was never you in the first place. Rosalind looked at him with disbelief in her eyes, her entire body trembling uncontrollably. What do you mean by that? What do you mean? Hayden casually tossed the flower in his hand to the ground, then snapped the ring box in his palm shut with a click. It's just that the person I want to propose to isn't you, Rosalind. As the words fell, the entire hall fell into dead silence, leaving only faint breaths audible. Hayden paid no attention to her expression, turned around, and bowed to the guests on all sides, his tone laced with amusement. Sorry, everyone, actually, today was just a rehearsal for the proposal. This Sunday, at the same time and place, I will propose to my girlfriend. I hope you can all come to witness it. Everyone in this circle is sharp-witted and quickly realized that today's event was just a setup to embarrass Rosalind. Everyone was happy to do Hayden this favor, pretending nothing had happened, and started waving their hands. No problem. No problem, we'll definitely come to support Hayden's event. Hayden even rehearses a proposal with such grandeur. Ms. Trista is truly fortunate. The voices of mediation coming from all directions only added fuel to the fire for the nearly Rosalind. She no longer cared about dignity or propriety, and screamed at Hayden with a piercing voice. Hayden, how dare you play me? The field fell silent once again. Hayden turned around leisurely, resuming his careless demeanor. Play. That word sounds too harsh. I think help would be better. Rosalind, you're not my girlfriend. Even a fool would know I wouldn't propose to you. Why would you have such a delusion? This remark was rather unpleasant. Hayden's tone was also quite flippant, causing many to cover their mouths and snicker. Rosalind was so enraged that she completely lost her composure, frantically pushing over the champagne tower beside her. How dare you humiliate me like this? You'd better not fucking regret it. The surrounding guests screamed and scrambled away. Hayden, however, stood unshaken, letting the icy liquid splash onto him. He took a handkerchief from his pocket, slowly wiping the wine stains from his face, not even bothering to spare her a single glance. Regret? I'm getting married soon. What is there to regret? Regret angering you? Just an ex-girlfriend from 8 years ago with no family background. Is there any need for regret? Every word struck Rosalind right in the heart. Amid the increasingly unrestrained laughter around her, she could no longer hold back, lifting her skirt as she dashed out of the hall. Just as she reached the door, she was stopped by police officers who happened to be pushing it open. Rosalind, right. Someone has reported you for an attempted rape case. Please come with us. Staring at the suddenly appearing police officers, Rosalind was completely stunned. She turned her head abruptly. Just in time to meet Hayden's icy cold gaze, Nathan has turned himself in, and the bar surveillance footage has been handed over to the police. Go with peace of mind, and remember to tell the truth, hoping for a lighter sentence. Get out early, and maybe you can still make it to Trista and my wedding by Thursday night. Hayden still hadn't received a call back from Trista. He was feeling extremely irritable, drinking with his head down. his eyes occasionally glancing at the screen. Susan knew what was on his mind and was trying to find ways to comfort him. She's definitely just throwing a little tantrum, waiting for you to coax her back. Trista likes you so much. Everyone can see it. How could she really want to break up? In my opinion, it's almost certainly her who urged her brother to invite you to the wedding, just to give you a way to make up. Hearing these words, Hayden finally felt a bit better. He checked the time and, as soon as it struck 9, immediately got up and headed for the airport. Susan drove him there, at a red light. He glanced at the exquisitely wrapped gift boxes in the back seat, his tone tinged with envy. It's just a college roommate's wedding, isn't it? Is all this fuss really necessary? You even dug out the old man's most treasured heirlooms. When I get married, you'd better not play favorites. Hayden shot him a look and tossed the string of beads in his hand over to him. What roommate? That's my future brother-in-law. Once I propose we'll be family. Isn't it normal to give some treasures? Look at your pathetic face. Oh ho ho, calling him brother-in-law already. Trista hasn't agreed to you yet. You quietly whisked her sister away without a word. I bet when you go to City D this time, you're going to get skinned alive. Hearing his teasing voice, Hayden's long-depressed mood finally cleared up like clouds parting to reveal the sun. He had already made up his mind. This trip to City D was firstly to congratulate Alfred, and secondly to meet the Quinton family and confess the relationship. As long as Trista could forgive him and agree to marry him, he would willingly endure even 10 beatings. He was more than willing. The wedding was held at the largest outdoor hotel in City D. At 9 in the morning, the hotel manager received a notice to temporarily relocate a table of guests' nameplates to the exit and to strengthen on-site security. At 10 o'clock, guests began to arrive one after another, and the spacious lawn was bustling with a lively crowd. Hayden had arrived at the pre-booked hotel early yesterday morning, rested overnight, met up with 2 roommates he hadn't seen in years, and came to the wedding venue together. The 3 of them stepped into the venue while discussing where to hang out after the wedding. A nearby waiter, after asking for their names, respectfully led them to their seats. After just a few steps, they arrived. Hayden looked at the considerable distance from the main stage and the people coming and going around him, cursing with a laugh. That bastard Alfred dragged the 3 of us all the way here, only to stick us in this godforsaken corner. What a lousy move. His 2 roommates agreed wholeheartedly and chimed in with a few complaints of their own. From this far away, we won't even be able to see the bride's face. What's the point of coming to the ceremony in person? We might as well have watched a live stream from the hotel. It would have been clearer than this. Who says it's not? Don't let me catch that kid, or I'll definitely give him a couple of kicks. Although the 3 of them were grumbling, they still sat down out of respect. Hayden took a few photos with his phone and sent them to Alfred, along with a questioning message. So far away, is this how you treat a friend? Perhaps the other side was busy, as there was no reply for a long time. Hayden also knew he couldn't get away today, so he didn't rush, just leisurely savored the red wine, admiring the elegant decor, still sighing with emotion in his heart. After not seeing each other for a few years, Alfred, this playboy, has actually started dabbling in the arts. This fine wine, this setting, this atmosphere, no matter how you look at it, it just doesn't seem like his style. 1 minute before the wedding began, the phone on the table dinged. Hayden picked it up and saw it was a message from Alfred. He replied with 2 lines. Your seats were arranged by me personally. I remember they were the table near the stage, weren't they? Hayden hadn't even processed it when the wedding march began right on time. Hearing the music, he looked up and saw the door on the stage, 20 meters away, swing open. A man in a black suit walked slowly into the venue and took his place at the center of the stage. Hayden was a bit nearsighted and couldn't see clearly into the distance, so he nudged Micah's arm. Is it Alfred's turn to step up now? Hearing this, the 2 people beside him turned their heads in unison, looking at him with shock in their eyes. What's he going on stage for? It's not his wedding today. Isn't it Alfred getting married? Then why did you call him here? Hayden's face instantly stiffened, and he asked tentatively, the groom isn't him, of course not. It's the 2nd son of the Maurice family in City D. Payne. Payne was a name Hayden naturally knew, after all. This 2nd son of the Maurice family was famously known as a genius, achieving remarkable success at a young age and had been the child of other families praised by elders since childhood. However, the Miles family was far away in City G and had little interaction with City D, so he had actually never met this prominent figure. Payne is getting married, Alfred called him over. Could it be that today is the day the Quinton family is marrying off their daughter? But the Quinton family only has Trista as their daughter, right? Could it be a cousin he doesn't know? Hayden suspected in his heart, squinting as he looked at the blurry white figure in the distance. The bride seems to have made her entrance. Mike and Tess both stood up, holding their wine glasses and sighing in admiration. I remember when I first met Trista, she was still a high school student. Who would have thought she'd be getting married now? Time really flies, isn't that the truth? Such a beautiful girl. If she were marrying someone else, I might feel a bit envious, but since it's pain, I only have 2 words: best wishes. Hayden, fingers swirling the wine glass, paused upon hearing Trista. Trista? Which Trista? Quinton family. Is there another daughter named Trista? He suddenly stood up, grabbed Tessa's hand, and stared intently at the 2 of them. The bride is Trista, Alfred's own sister. Neither of them knew what had suddenly gotten into him, hesitantly nodding in response. Yeah, Trista. Why else would they invite us to drink? Today is Trista and Payne's wedding. Hayden, didn't you know? Hayden certainly didn't know. He never expected that the wedding he was attending today would be Trista's. Upon suddenly learning the truth, his mind exploded with a deafening roar. All the blood in his body began to rush backward, surging straight to the top of his head. In an instant, all thoughts of watching the fun vanished without a trace, replaced by endless panic. He could no longer hear any sounds around him. Like a madman, he pushed over the chair and dashed toward the center of the stage. Several security guards, seeing that something was wrong, quickly chased after him. By the time he reached the very center and could clearly see what was happening on the stage, the wedding had just reached the exchange of rings. The MC held the microphone and loudly asked if the bride was willing to marry the groom. Hayden's wildly beating heart nearly leaped out of his chest the moment he saw Trista raise her hand to put on the ring. With all his strength, he shouted hoarsely, "Don't." In an instant, all eyes in the room turned to him. There was astonishment, surprise, curiosity, and disgust. He could see nothing, only Trista turning her head slightly, casting a calm gaze his way. This gaze did not linger on him for long, merely sweeping past with a light glance. After seeing the security guards who followed swiftly restrain Hayden, Trista turned her head away. She took the microphone and, amidst the cheers of the entire audience, smiled and said, "I do." This sentence Hayden heard clearly and remembered deeply. "I will never forget this for the rest of my life." The minor disturbance didn't attract much attention. After the security personnel escorted the person disrupting the order out of the venue as instructed, the wedding proceeded in an orderly manner. The only 4 people whose expressions changed on the scene were the 4 close friends who had once shared a dormitory. Backstage, Alfred clearly saw what was happening at the scene. Hayden rushed forward. But he seemed to sense something, and his expression instantly darkened. Upon hearing the staff mention that there were still 10 minutes until the best man's speech, he took off his jacket, flexed his wrists, and walked out. Just as he reached the door, he ran right into an irrational Hayden and a bewildered He-Yang. He waved his hand, grabbed Hayden by the collar, and spoke in an icy tone. "Just now, what did you mean by don't? Hayden, who are you talking to?" Hayden looked utterly confused, staring at Alfred for a long time before his eyes finally focused a bit, and he squeezed out a few words through his teeth. "To Trista. I said it." The suspicion that had been building in Alfred's heart for a long time was confirmed by these words. A stiff smile forced its way onto his livid face. His tone icy to the extreme. "What status do you have? What right do you have to say that to Trista? I'm her boyfriend." Before the word friend could fully leave his lips, Alfred's fist, brimming with fury, had already smashed into his face. "Fucking hell, I asked you to take care of my sister. And this is how you do it. 6 years. We've been together for 6 years. You didn't say a fucking word. What do you take me for? What do you take Trista for? Hayden, all those years ago. No matter how we invited you to City D, you refused to come. How the hell do you have the nerve to show up now, when it was the groomsmen's turn to give speeches?" The host called 3 times before the 3 groomsmen hurriedly took the stage. Trista, her smile froze as she looked at her brother standing at the end of the line, his face bruised, perhaps sensing her gaze. Alfred looked up with a pained grin, flashing her a bright smile and silently opening his mouth. "It's a joyous day, smile. Be happy." Trista read his lips and, following his lead, gave an even brighter smile. Alfred, as he gave his speech, his bruised face was magnified on the screen, and even the host couldn't resist making a few jokes. "This best man, why did you come on stage with a colorful makeup look? Are you going to perform something for everyone?" At first, the guests were shocked, but upon hearing this, they burst into laughter. Alfred scratched his head, showing an embarrassed expression, and took the microphone. "I just took a tumble off stage, so please excuse my clumsiness. I actually had a speech prepared, but I lost my notes when I fell, so I'll just speak off the cuff. Feel free to just listen casually. Although I'm here as a groomsman, I actually have a hidden identity. I'm the bride's older brother. Yes, my name is Alfred, and I'm Trista's biological brother. I'm 4 years older than her. We've been bickering since we were kids. She's gentle with everyone else. But she loves to talk back to me, and I often teased her and made her upset. Sometimes, when I took the teasing too far, I'd reflect on whether I should apologize, but every time I went up to her, that older brother arrogance would overpower the guilt, and I just couldn't bring myself to say I'm sorry. So, dragging it out for over a decade, I never said it. Today is my sister and my best friend's wedding day. They're about to start their own happy little family. And I'm both happy and a little sad. It's complicated, but as her older brother, I still feel I should share some life advice. I just want to tell Trista, it's okay to take a fall, as long as you get back up, the wounds will slowly heal, and the pain will fade with time. It was my negligence before that made you suffer grievances. Today, in front of everyone, I promise that the mistakes of the past will never happen again, and I will never let outsiders bully you again. Can you? Can you forgive me? By the end, Alfred was sobbing uncontrollably. The audience thought he was reluctant to part and responded with kind smiles. Only Trista understood the meaning behind his words and knew what he was apologizing for. Her heart ached with bitterness, and tears welled up in her eyes. Beside her, Payne looked at her, silently took the bouquet from her hand, then let it go, his voice as gentle as water. Go. Trista could no longer hold back, and she ran. Rushing into her brother's embrace, the siblings held each other tightly, their tears mingling as they fell, merged into one again. After the wedding, Trista changed into casual clothes, took Payne's hand, and prepared to return to their new home. It was the first time they held hands with fingers intertwined as a newlywed couple. Feeling the warmth from his palm, Trista felt her skin, chilled by the air conditioning, slowly warming up. The couple avoided the crowd at the front door and headed toward the back in trance. As soon as they pushed the door open, Trista's gaze was drawn to Hayden a few meters away. It wasn't because she still held any lingering affection for him, but because his face, bruised and swollen from being beaten, was simply too eye-catching. Only after seeing him in this state did she finally understand why her brother's shirt had been torn to shreds in that fight. Of course. She is his own sister whom he watched grow up. If he doesn't take some drastic measures, how can he succeed? Hayden had no idea what she was thinking. Seeing her, he rushed forward in a hurry but was stopped 5 steps away. He was very agitated at the moment, gritting his teeth as he glared at Payne blocking his way, his tone full of threat. Payne, it's not you I'm looking for. Payne nodded lightly, his expression faint. I know, I'm just telling you that my wife doesn't want to see you. The words wife deeply stung Hayden. He grabbed Payne's collar, his face turning utterly ferocious. You're asking for death. Payne glanced at his wrist, a cold glint flashing in his eyes. Are you sure? Let me remind you, if your left hand takes another heavy blow, it'll be completely useless. You probably won't be able to eat Western food for the rest of your life. Hayden had just started speaking when he was interrupted by Trista. Payne, you go wait in the car first. I'll handle this myself. Payne really didn't want to leave the two of them alone, but in the end, he respected her wish, brushed off Hayden's hand, and slowly walked to the car, watching from a distance. Trista waved her hand and gave a faint smile, reassuring him. When she turned back to face Hayden, her face was left with only a deathly calm, and her tone was cold. You must have seen the breakup letter. I'm already married, let's not see each other anymore. If there's anything else you want to say, just say it all clearly today. Hayden's heart, which had just surfaced, was pushed back into the dark depths of the lake by these words. His face turned a shade paler, a flicker of panic flashed in his eyes, and his tone was full of stubbornness. Trista, I never agreed to break up. It doesn't count. Come back to City G with me. Okay, I've already prepared to propose to you. Didn't you promise me before that you would only marry me in this lifetime? Watching him nervously pull out that dazzling ring, Trista raised her hand and held it out in front of him. The entire scar started 10 centimeters above her wrist and extended all the way to the knuckle of her ring finger. The black scab, mixed with dark medicinal stains, looked like a black dragon from an ancient painting. Striking awe and fear in anyone who saw it, Hayden only glanced at it before instinctively lowering his head, no longer having the courage to meet her gaze. After a long silence, he finally spoke in a hoarse voice, uttering the words, I'm sorry. Trista did not need his apology. Because more than half a month had passed, the scabbed wound on her hand no longer hurt, only itching slightly. She just wanted to show him the ring on the wound. This diamond ring was chosen together with Payne. And she fell in love with it at first sight. The 10-carat sapphire, though not as dazzling as the one on Hayden's hand, was more to her taste in style. Payne said something to her when he bought it, and she remembers it clearly to this day. From the moment I saw your photo, I had a premonition that I would spend the rest of my life with you. Though it may sound absurd, I want you to know that once I've made up my mind, I never change it, not about things, and not about people. Please trust me this once. Trista only replied with 3 words, me too. She was convinced that once a matter had no room for reversal, she would never look back. She was convinced that the person she decided to spend her life with, she would definitely give him a chance, and her and Hayden. It was actually wrong from the very beginning. It took her 8 years to realize she had taken the wrong path. How could I possibly repeat the same mistake? So, she lifted her head and met his gaze with a resolute look, telling him clearly and unmistakably, Hayden, what you've always liked was never me, but the faint shadow of Rosalind you see in me. The reason I proposed breaking up is not because I'm throwing a tantrum or waiting for you to coax me back, but because I no longer love you. As long as it's deception, it doesn't deserve forgiveness. Do you still remember saying those words? You deceived me for 6 years. I don't want to forgive you, nor do I want to hate you. I just want to cut all ties with you and sever this worldly bond, word by word, like sharp blades. Hayden's heart was being sliced to pieces. He couldn't accept this outcome no matter what. Shaking his head desperately, Trista didn't look at him. She turned around and gazed at the person waiting for her in the distance. I have a new family. I'm about to start a new career. My husband is planning our honeymoon. My future is bright and clear. If you still have even the slightest bit of guilt towards me, then leave City D, and never appear before me again in this lifetime. Let us forget each other in the vast sea of people. As the words fell, a smile slowly spread across her face, and she stepped down the stairs one by one, never looking back. On a summer evening, the heat had yet to fade. Payne held Trista's hand as they strolled along the bluish asphalt road. Trista felt for the first time that summer was such a wonderful season. Gazing at the distant streetlights gradually lighting up, she turned her head to glance at Payne, her tone incredibly cheerful. How much farther? You're not going to wear out your bride on the very first day of marriage, are you? Payne also laughed, raising his hand and pointing at the villa 10 meters away. Trista looked up and immediately saw a fiery, vivid red. The night was deep, and the light was poor. She couldn't make out what they were, so she couldn't help but ask a few questions. What is that? Payne didn't tell her, instead pulling her along as they broke into a jog. As she approached and pushed the door open, Trista saw the garden full of flame trees, blooming vibrantly on the branches. Her eyes instantly lit up as she looked up at this dense sea of flowers. A gust of wind blew, and the light red petals fluttered down gently. She felt as if she were in a dream. Payne gazed at her intently, watching her lift the hem of her skirt, twirl around, and laughingly sing a song he had never heard before. When she had finished her tantrum, he pulled her into his embrace, gently plucking the petals that had fallen on her head one by one. Trista looked up and saw her own reflection in his bright, clear eyes. She raised her hand and waved it in front of his eyes, disrupting his train of thought. What are you thinking about? Thinking about whether tomorrow is a day off? Or if I should take you home to try my mom's cooking, wondering what's still missing at home, whether you'd feel uncomfortable, thinking, listening to him ramble on and on. Trista felt a bit dizzy. She stood on tiptoe and pinched his cheek. Such a romantic place. Can we think of something else, then? Can I kiss my wife?